Well, we're getting ready to do a show, so everybody hang on. We're queuing it up. We should be live in a minute or two. A lot going on this week. Wars, mass murders, economic problems, all kinds of fun.
Because no matter what, no matter where, you need the truth. And specifically, if you're listening from Newport Richey to St. Petersburg or from Tampa to the coast, you can get the answer on FM 93.7. Always on AM 860, online at theanswertampa.com. And depending on where you are, on FM 93.7.
Thank you for the amazing job you've done in moving my first book forward in the publishing process.
Ludi Cotton Darnell's book, Ashley, Alex, and the Mystery Twins, was published with Zulon Press.
This is an exciting
Doc,
time
I'm going
for
to
me.
let Taps play out all the way.
For a Christian audience, want to control the publishing process? Your free publishing guide is at christianpublishing.com.
I thank the Lord that Zulon Press has made it possible.
Visit.
Not sure if you heard me, but I'm going to let the Taps play out all the way.
Okay.
Bay Area Medical Can Care Clinic.
Odyssey. Here is your exclusive AccuWeather forecast.
Today, partly sunny, maybe a thunderstorm for the afternoon. The high today, 92. A thunderstorm in spots early this evening and clearing tonight, low 74. Partly sunny thunderstorm for tomorrow, the high at 90. Evening thunderstorm tomorrow night and the low 74. Partly sunny shower and a heavy thunderstorm on Tuesday, the high at 90. That's your AccuWeather forecast. I'm Steve Williams for AM 860, The Answer.
And we're on. This is Dr. Bill. The Taps for Memorial Day. Let's remember the Memorial Day celebrates those who have given their lives in battle for us. And my Uncle Jackie, as you guys know, I've talked about him before, gave his life. He was just a teenager during World War II. He joined the Army Air Force, and he was on a B-17, and they were coming back from a bombing mission over Germany. That was before we had the P-51 Mustang fighters that would fly escort, and they were shot down over the North Sea. And of course, at that time, if you were shot down in the North Sea, that was a death sentence. So we honor all of those, and as sad as it is, we also have to take joy in what has been accomplished and what we have, and be grateful for it too. Don't you think, Ken?
Absolutely, Doc.
Absolutely, we got to. And we got a lot going on. We've got a war still going on in Ukraine, although the Russians seem to have consolidated the eastern part of the country. It ain't over yet. It ain't over yet. And I know a lot of the Republicans are yelling that we don't want to send any money over there or any aid. We're not nation builders. I disagree with that, as I've said all along, and I think that's where Trump and I have some differences. But I don't know that I'm going to win the day. It looks like the Ukrainians are going to get some help, $30 to $40 billion worth of armaments and support, and I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I'll vote with the Democrats on that one, buddy.
Well, it's the same. Well, look at, we go back to World War II. If we would have supported Poland,
Yep.
when Hitler went in there, the whole history could have been completely different.
Would have been completely different. If we had stopped Hitler in 37, 38, 39, it would have been a completely different world. But World War I and World War II saw about 100 million people killed total. Can you believe that? 100 million.
I know, it's phenomenal.
Mostly civilians. And the biggest Western kill before that was the 30 Years' War back in the 17th century, and I think it was 25 million, which was a big number of people back then. And I think China had a civil war back in the 8th or 9th century where they had 30, 40 million people killed. But those are big numbers, Guy. Those are big numbers. Now we've got the mass shooting down in Texas, and as dramatic as it is, they're very small numbers. You know, it's sad. Your heart goes out to the families, and you wonder how this can happen in our country, but we're not really following up on these kids that are disturbed and making threats. And I guess this kid was making threats long before he actually bought the guns and started going on his rampage. At least that's what we're hearing in the press now, that he was threatening to rape girls and kill people and mass murder. And, you know, in Florida, that's a crime. Did you know that?
Just making the threat.
Making a threat, and it's a federal crime, too. And there was a guy here a few years back in Florida who threatened the post office, or he threatened somebody through the post office using the mail. And, of course, the feds, they don't mess around, so he's in jail. They locked his butt up.
But I understand he put some of this on Facebook, and what I do not understand is how can the computer tell me that I was at McDonald's 25 minutes ago and they want my opinion on it, but they can't pick this up with an algorithm of some sort.
Well, I think that there's a couple of reasons that this falls through the cracks. One is that people don't want to believe it. Number two, people hear teenagers say a lot of things. Make a lot of stupid statements, and that's just part of the growing process, especially for guys. But I think that we have to start looking more closely at the kids that are disturbed and that are making these threats. And as I've said all along, the way to do this is to start at pre-K and screen these boys as they come in and find out if they're coming out of a troubled household, if there's abuse and neglect, if they have sociopathic tendencies, and then you got to watch them. And you got to earmark them, but people aren't going to do that, Ken, because they think that that would be an intrusion on their parental rights and the privacy of their children.
Well, how about parental responsibility? Why is mom and dad looking at their Facebook page to see what they're putting on there?
Well, I agree with you, but that's kind of tough to do. I mean, Zeke would... He would take his phone to bed at night, and he'd hide under the covers. He was on Facebook till 2 or 3 in the morning as a teenager. And, you can't stay awake and watch them all night long. My parents couldn't watch me. I was sneaking out and stealing their car when I was 15 and joyriding and seeing my girlfriend. So it's not easy. I mean, you know yourself, you raise kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't watch them.
And when I caught him doing something rather torrid on a computer, I took those computers away, Doc.
Well, yeah, I think that's important too. But I mean, this kid got into it with his mother, and what did he do? He left and he moved to his grandmother's. So grandma's not going to have the same impact as mom, and he ended up shooting her.
Yeah, he was disturbed.
Yeah, but we can screen for these people, these kids, but we got to do it early. I mean, really early, like pre-K. That's when you do it. And as egregious and as sad and as horrific as this is, you know what percentage of the population the 2022 people represent?
Not really, no.
0.0000588235. It's an infinitesimally small number of people. You think of 1% of 340 million people is, 3 million, 3.4 million? You're talking about an infinitesimally small number. You're talking about 6 decimal places to the right of 1%. These are really small numbers, and the murder rate has gone up this year. The death rate by guns has gone up. And incidentally, even though there's an estimated 45,000 gun deaths this year, most of them are suicides. 18 to 19,000 are murders. The overwhelming majority of those are with handguns. And there's more murders by knives and fists and clubs than there are by assault rifles. So these are pretty. Although it's so dramatic, that's the thing. It's just so darn dramatic, and it's unbelievable. But there was a guy named Andrew Kehoe, and this was in 1927, and he had been elected to the Bath Township School Board. He was the treasurer. He was a farmer originally, and then he lost his seat, and so he killed his wife, strapped himself with dynamite, went to the school, and blew up 38 kids and 6 adults, and 58 more people were injured. Then he went out into his truck and blew himself up and blew up several other people and killed them around him. So these things are not new. They're not new, and they're not just in the United States. It's all over the world.
It's just sad. That's all it is.
It's just sad. It is, and I don't think we're ever going to completely stop it. But certainly we can screen and get some of these kids before they get into trouble. And the other thing is, just enforce the laws that are there. We don't need any more gun laws. We don't need any more laws regarding threatening people and threatening kids. What we need are enforcement. We need the police and the authorities to enforce these laws, pick these kids up. And, they don't want to stigmatize the kid, but too bad. Our safety comes first.
Well, red flag laws, I guess, have worked to a certain extent in some locations, so I don't know if that's worth doing nationally.
Well, yeah. I mean, you got to go state by state, but...
Right. And so, there are things we can do, but you're right. We have plenty of laws right now, and they need to be enforced.
They need to be enforced.
And you have to be willing to pay those tax dollars to enforce them, because it costs money to have people go out and check homes.
And it costs money to hire policemen and keep them and train them.
Yes, so we have to be willing to give a little cash to get this done.
And we've got to harden our schools too. Lock the doors.
When somebody's propping a door open.
Yeah, that's a problem.
How do you get over that? How do you get around that?
You've got to train your teachers and your staff and your personnel on how to adequately secure the premises. It just has to be done, and this is a lesson learned. Hopefully, this will be a wake-up call for Americans everywhere who have kids in schools to demand. I mean, we're spending so much time on arguing over woke curriculum. Who cares about that stuff? This is just ridiculous.
What are the odds of a teacher propping open the door and a resource officer not being at the school when he was supposed to be there? He's probably there every day on time. Yeah. But for whatever reason, he was late that day.
He was late. And what are you going to do? I mean, you circumstances are what they are. You have these things happen. You have things slip through the cracks. But why the police didn't go in earlier? Well, they didn't have the tools to break into the room. The kid had locked the door. And they were waiting to get tools in to get, I guess, shields so they could go in. And you can understand that they would not want to go in there without vest and armament and protect themselves. I mean, it'd be suicide. So it was just a number of unusual circumstances that allowed this to happen. But the main one is that they let this kid slip through the cracks. That's the main thing.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I do know that repealing, there's some talk now about trying to repeal the Second Amendment. That's never going to happen, first of all. But
no, that's just the Democrats trying to thump up some votes.
But it's not a good idea. I mean, it's just not a good idea. There are places in this country where you absolutely have to have a gun, or you might be mauled by a bear.
Well, I've got a Korean bear that mauls me from time to time, but I'm not allowed to shoot her. Apparently, she's an endangered species.
I mean, if there's an alligator on my front door, I'm going to shoot it.
Well, the Second Amendment, the whole purpose of it initially was to allow the states to be able to quickly have militias formed so that they could resist an overly intrusive federal government. And in the 19th century, there was a fairly strict construction of the Second Amendment, but in the 20th and 21st century, it's become more liberal to say, well, it's not only for states fighting the federal government, it's also for people to protect themselves. And actually, where there are guns in the hands of responsible people, there's less crime. There is less crime. And you say, well, I don't understand that. Well, it's real simple. If you come into my house, I'm going to shoot you. It's real simple. And I can use a gun, and I've got one sitting right in front of me right now. So
we've actually had I've seen several examples of that online, of stories from around the country over the past couple of weeks where people have. One was a grandmother. She was 80, and she grabbed her gun and she blew a guy away who got into her house.
Yep, and that'll make people think twice. Now, you might say, well, most of these people are opportunistic and, they're probably high on drugs and all that. Yeah, but still, there's such a thing as a deterrent,
Now, and in Chicago, everybody shooting everybody else, well, they got the guns illegally. They're all gang members for the most part.
It's all South Chicago. I mean, they had some creep up close to the Miracle Mile there a few weeks ago, but it was kids at a McDonald's or a fast food store that were shooting at each other.
Yeah. I bet none of those guns were legally purchased.
No. They're probably all stolen.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where you got to concentrate the problems in the big cities.
Yeah. And that's something that the Democrats do not want to take up. And
they don't even want to talk about it.
I don't understand it. I mean, just go through the barrios and pick these kids up and put them in detention centers.
No, that's profiling, Doc. Can't do that.
Oh no, and that's racist too.
That's profiling, so you can't do that, sir. Sorry.
I know.
That sure would help out, wouldn't it?
Listen, that wasn't me that said that. It was my alter ego. So here's another dead man walking. This is from The Guardian over in London, the newspaper. Boris Bondarev. He is the highest level diplomat to now criticize the Russian war in the Ukraine. I'm sure he's not anymore, but he was a Russian diplomat to the UN in Geneva, and he quits over the Ukraine war. He ain't going to be around long. He's toast.
I think he was out of the country at a meeting when he did that.
He was. And
I think he's relatively safe. He may be poisoned at some point.
Oh yeah, they'll get him eventually. And he says, "Never have I been so ashamed of my country." There you go. There you go. But nobody's going to know within the Soviet Union about that. They will not publicize that.
What I think is great lately are all the talk from the Chinese and the Russians about taking out Elon Musk's satellites because they can't stop that message coming through.
Well, by the way, the Chinese have formed a research group, or there's a research group being formed at one of the universities to figure out ways to take out all of Elon's satellites. And so the Russians are threatening to do it, but they don't have the technology. The Chinese may be able to develop the technology, but by the time they get around to it, he'll have about 20,000 up there. I think he's already got 2,500.
Well, Elon said, I got more of these satellites than they've got missiles to take them out, so bring it on.
Did he say that?
Yeah, that's what he said.
I love him.
I love this guy,
Yeah, and he offered to help Putin launch his anti-satellite satellites because he's got a bigger operation than the Russians do for launching.
Elon is great.
He's a character.
Yeah. So that's fun.
So I heard that Beto O'Rourke interrupted the governor's press conference down in Texas after the school shooting. I don't know what he said. Did you hear anything about that?
Yeah. He made a fool of himself. He was, saying, "How could you let this happen? It's all your fault." He just walked up they were discussing the details of what was happened at the shooting the day before, and there he is screaming at him from the floor of the right in front of the stage, and they grabbed him, pulled him out. But he's an idiot. That's a PR stunt that went wrong. He misjudged that completely.
And he's a cabinet member. Can you believe that?
Yeah. Well.
I mean,
I forgot about that, but you're right. He is a cabinet member.
I cannot wrap my mind around what the Democrats are doing and saying. It's insane. Men can have babies? I mean,
Where did that come from?
There was some woman testifying before Congress a couple of weeks ago, before the Senate, and they were talking about abortion, and Grasso said, "Can men get pregnant?" And she said, "Yeah, yes they can."
Boy, I'd like to see the logic behind that.
No, it's out of control. We got to do something about this, Ken. I'm calling for an all-out revolt.
A civil war?
Well,
how about we just have a civil war at the voting booth?
Yeah, I guess we could just stick our tongue out at them and go nanny boo boo and vote.
Let's start with the voting. Before we start shooting at each other. Because the first Civil War cost us about 500,000 lives, and we don't want to do that again.
No, did you know that, Memorial Day has been around for thousands of years. The women and the families have been putting flowers on the graves of their dead soldiers, fallen soldiers, dating back to antiquity. And during the Civil War, it was started again by the women in the South because of all the kids that were coming back dead. And they started putting flowers on the graves. And then several states started to pick it up. And the New England states and the northeastern states made state holidays out of it. And, of course, the South held back because those were northern holidays, and there was still a lot of animosity and hurt feelings in the South. But I did not know this, Ken. It was not made an official federal holiday on the last Monday of May until 1970, 1971.
Get out of here.
That's what I read. Even though it had been celebrated, and I think originally it was the 30th of May that they celebrated it, and then I guess that was sort of a tradition. And then the Congress passed a law enshrining it for the last Monday in May. And that was in, I think, 1970 or 71. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but unbelievable. But this goes back to antiquity, and it shows respect for those who have given that last full measure, so to speak. My Uncle Jackie being one of them.
Playing taps at a funeral, by the way. I was just reading, because I had to look up the song, and I was just reading about it earlier this morning, that it was actually written and begun as a salute in the North for fallen Civil War soldiers. And like 9 months later, the South picked it up as well. So they've been playing that at funerals for a long, long time.
Yep, so much came out of the Civil War. So much. So many changes in our country, and so many holidays, so many memorials, and of course Veterans Day, which was originally Armistice Day. That's in November. That commemorates all of the military people who fought in wars, whether they made it or not, whether they came home or not. And that was the end of World War I, Ken. That was the end of World War I. The 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, and that's why it's celebrated on November 11th. And then after, they call it armistice because the United States, at least in the United States, we never signed a treaty with the Germans and the Austro-Hungarians, so it's called Armistice Day. And then after World War II, it was changed to Veterans Day.
Now, Memorial Day, that's also for fallen police officers and people like that, I believe, as well. Because we do have a lot of those celebrations, or remembrances, I should say. It's not really a celebration.
I did not know that, but if you say so, by gosh, I'm with you. I'm on it.
I think it may have a separate day, but it's like a couple of days earlier, maybe.
I know that there is another military day, which is an unofficial day in May. I think it's called Armed Forces Day, but I don't know a whole lot about that. That is out of my realm of consciousness. Well, so the UN Human Rights Chief is called to see Xinjiang's province to see if there's really all the abuses going on that the United States claims there is. So we'll see what comes out of that. But you know, the UN is not going to criticize China. They don't want to get the Chinese upset.
Doesn't matter. Whatever they come up with, the Chinese will just veto it.
Yeah, they'll veto it. And by the way, did you hear that Biden said that North Korea had sided with us on sanctions against Russia?
Oh,
The guy's just disconnected. I mean, he's our president?
yeah. What's going on over there with North Korea and their COVID thing? We should talk about that maybe a little bit. We got to do the news here in a couple of minutes, but maybe at some point we'll go into that because they say they've got. I think they've got a lot of Chinese vaccine now or something they're handing out.
Well,
they're calling it the love shot.
The love shot.
The love shot from the supreme leader or something
You're
like
going to
that.
love this, baby. Come here. Hold still, shut up.
That's right. So before we go to the news, we should do a question here.
Questions, yeah. Oh, by the way, last week I was a little late in getting those mugs out, but they'll get to you soon. So hang in there.
And we're going to give 2 more away right now. So if you've been listening since the show started, you have the answer because we always have a question that deals with what happened in the first half of the show. And it's good for the first person with the correct answer will win 2 Dr. Bill, Your Radio MD mugs, beautiful coffee mugs. And the number to call is 877-969-8600. That's 877-969-8600. First person with the correct answer will win. And, we just talked about this a couple minutes ago, as a matter of fact. What song did we start the show with today? Well, what's the name of the song that we started the show with today? First person with the correct answer at 877-969-8600 will win. Isn't that right, Doc?
That's right. And by the way, the poppy is the official flower of Memorial Day. And you know why, Ken?
I do not. Why?
In Flanders fields where poppies grow, among the crosses, row on row. That was a poem written after World War I by, I think, James, I can't remember his name. At any rate, he wrote that as he was walking through one of the military cemeteries in France, and the poppies were growing, and so that became the official flower of Memorial Day. So that's what I've got on the streaming website today. So let's go to break. I'm Dr. Bill. We'll be right back. Don't you go anywhere, folks.
With SRN News, I'm Michael Harrington in Washington. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and other top officials are discussing revising stringent anti-epidemic restrictions as they maintain the widely disputed claim that the country's first COVID-19 outbreak is slowing. The discussion at the North's Politburo meeting today suggests it will soon relax a set of draconian curbs imposed after its recent admission of the Omicron outbreak. Agatha is the first tropical storm of 2022. It is forming in the Pacific Ocean near Mexico's southern coast. Probably will make landfall by Tuesday, officials are saying. A hurricane watch has been issued for parts of the coast of the southern state of Oaxaca. And airline travelers having a tough Memorial Day weekend. Not only does it cost a whole lot to fly, but there have been thousands of flight cancellations. This is SRN News.
Dr. Bill for Bay Area Medical, located at 6399 38th Avenue North in St. Pete, 727-384-6411, 727-384-6411. Full-service clinic with x-ray, heart imaging, ultrasound, stress testing, and minor surgery. We provide quality health care in a warm and friendly atmosphere. We are multilingual, well-trained, and certified. Most American insurance and new patients accepted. Bay Area Medical, home of can care, 727-384-6411. 6411, 727-384-6411. Dr. Bill here. With social distancing and sheltering in place, telemedicine is here. Bay Area Medical Home of Care Clinic offers telemedicine for new and established patients. You can see me without an in-office visit. Schedule an appointment at 727-384-6411, 727-384-6411. When it's time for your appointment, type this web address into your cell phone or computer web browser, doxy.me/Bay Area Med. A cell phone works well and is all you really need. For computers, you need a web camera and speakers. We'll give you this address when you call for your appointment. We accept most insurances and travel insurances. Canadians and visitors, please call your travel insurance company for an authorization number prior to the visit. Copays and deductibles apply. Self-pay rates are available. Just ask. We accept credit cards, PayPal, and Stripe. 727-384-6411, 727-384-6411. Dr. Bill here. My friends at St. Pete MRI and Sleep Diagnostics are your best choice for state-of-the-art MRI, CT, and sleep studies. Quality unsurpassed. 25 years experience makes St. Pete MRI my go-to imaging center. Self-pay rates are competitive and out-of-pocket cost a fraction of a hospital. Conveniently accessible from both sides of the bay at 750 94th Avenue North, St. Pete, near the Gandhi. 727-577-2220, 727-577-2220.
Stock market have you nervous? With geopolitical conflict and inflation concerns, it's virtually impossible to guess what will happen next. But with Vantage Point, you don't have to. Learn to trade with artificial intelligence. Text the word money to 813-813 and discover how to predict stock market trends up to 3 days ahead with incredible accuracy. Whether you trade stocks, options, forex, futures, or crypto, Vantage Point's patented artificial intelligence can give you a massive edge. Text the word money to 813-813 to get what you need to stay ahead of the markets and find big moves before they happen. Don't wait. Text the word money to 813-813.
Trading involves financial risk and is not suitable for all investors. Past results do not guarantee future performance. By texting, you agree to the terms available at VantagePointSoftware.com/terms and consent to receive calls and text using automated technology about offers or info by or on behalf of Vantage Point. Your consent is not a condition of purchase and can be revoked at any time. Message and data rates may apply.
In 2008, I wrote The Dumbest Generation. This is Mark Bauerlein. The millennials I wrote about have grown up now with little faith, patriotism, knowledge, art and literature, civics, without purpose and looking to fill the void. They found the answer in utopian dreams of perfect justice and universal happiness that will only disappoint them. My new book, The Dumbest Generation Grows Up, From Stupefied Youth to Dangerous Adults, lays out the wreckage and shows how to rescue the next generation.
Get Mark Bauerlein's timely new book, The Dumbest Generation Grows Up, wherever books are sold.
AM 860, The Answer. Online at theanswertampa.com.
Odyssey.
Here is your exclusive AccuWeather forecast.
Today, partly sunny, maybe a thunderstorm for the afternoon. The high today, 92. A thunderstorm in spots early this evening and clearing tonight, low 74. Partly sunny thunderstorm for tomorrow, the high at 90. Evening thunderstorm tomorrow night and the low 74. Partly sunny shower and a heavy thunderstorm on Tuesday, the high at 90. That's your AccuWeather forecast. I'm Steve Williams for AM 860, The Answer.
And I'm back. This is Dr. Bill. Got Kevin by my side. We're doing a radio show, and we're streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, my own website, drbillradiomd.com. I was talking about in Flanders Fields, the poppies, and I looked it up during the break. It was a Canadian physician, Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae, who actually wrote this, and he was presiding over a mass burial of soldiers in Flanders, France, and I'll read a little bit of it, Ken. In Flanders Fields, the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. And it goes on, we are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved nor loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If you break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep. though poppies grow in Flanders fields. And that was why we have poppies as the symbol of Memorial Day. And it's not just in the United States. It is all over the Western world. In Canada, I think they call it Remembrance Day in Canada, but I can't remember for sure. And we were in France years ago on Memorial Day, and they have a Memorial Day too. So it's fairly widespread custom.
Do they still stand on the street corners? They used to do that and collect money for veterans. You give them,
I haven't seen it this year. But yeah, I remember that we used to. I've seen it in recent years, but I haven't seen anybody this year. So we'll see what happens. Maybe there is something going on. I'll drive by the DFW post and see if they're doing it. There's one.
Well, in some areas it was outlawed because these guys unfortunately were getting hit by cars.
They were getting hit by cars.
Yeah. Well, they're trying to give out the poppies.
But the bums on the street, that's okay.
They can go whatever they want.
Wait a minute. I don't get it.
We have a winner, Doc.
We got a winner.
Yes, we have a winner. Congratulations to Joe Girardi of Clearwater. Joe was the first caller and correctly identified the song that we opened the show with today as being Taps. And he has won himself 2 Dr. Bill, your Radio MD coffee mugs, and they'll be on the way to you shortly, Joe. So congratulations to Joe Girardi of Clearwater, Florida.
Good job, Joe. Thanks for listening. We appreciate you, buddy. We need all the help we can get here, Ken.
Excuse me, Doc?
We need all the help we can get, so
you're doing okay.
So you think the Democrats are going to use the shooting down in Texas as a political card for the elections?
Well, I'm sure they'll try, but it's all going to come back to the economy, no matter what.
Yeah, it is. And as I said, the percentage of Americans who die at the hands of mass shooters is so infinitesimally small. It's just so splashy and in your face, and it's something that the press will run with because it sells. People that sensationalism of something so horrible like that is something that makes money for the press. That's just the facts of life, dude.
Well, to have it make really any significance, I think you would have to have something like this happen the week of the election, because again, the economy affects everybody, and people vote their pocketbooks.
Well, plus people don't remember,
That's right, it fades. Your memory fades.
6 months from now, it's going to be, I don't remember that. The Texas shooting, tell me about that.
Exactly. It's sad, but it is absolute, 24 hours, 7-day-a-week coverage right now. The network news, they're spending 15 minutes on it.
And, the number of gun deaths in the country has gone up precipitously in the past couple of years, in part because of the pandemic. People go stir crazy, but it had started to rise. It had been running around 12,000 a year homicides, and then that started picking up around 2009-10 with the recession. It dipped down back close to 12,000 in 2014, but now we're pushing 19,000 homicides a year. So it's jumped considerably, but that big jump started in 2019 with the pandemic coming along. Although I think there was probably some increase pre-pandemic. When the pandemic hit hardest, in 2020 or 2019, I can't remember.
2020, I think.
2020, yeah. So this actually started before the pandemic, and then the pandemic, I'm guessing, has kept it going because, I don't know why people are crazier than ever locked up. Who knows? You would think it would go down, but apparently not. So we're pushing 45,000 deaths a year, less than half by murdered. Most of them are suicides. And then we've also got, 100,000 overdose deaths this year so far, or last year?
Yeah, the fentanyl is killing everybody.
And now New York City, apparently they have an ad campaign going to say, don't be ashamed if you're doing drugs. It's okay. Just don't do too much at one time. I'm like, what? You can't make this stuff up. You cannot make this up. It is just unbelievable.
All right. Love New York, love L.A. They both come up with some weird ideas sometimes.
It is. It's just unbelievable. Originally, Memorial Day was known as Decoration Day, and as I said in Canada, and I think in England it's called Remembrance Day, but it's all over the world. And the states that claim the origin of this include Virginia, Georgia, Mississippi, South Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, New York. Everybody claims that they started it. Of course, everything actually started in the South. Do you know that before the Civil War, the South, if you considered it a country, an independent country, it was the fourth wealthiest country on earth?
No kidding. I didn't know they had that much money down there back then.
And so much of the economy depended upon cotton. Growing cotton, exporting cotton, and then the cotton was sent also, it was exported not only overseas, but to the north. And in New England, they had the clothing factories and the mills that would make things out of cotton and wool. And then that was a big industry. I mean, the clothing was, that was one of the main industries back then. It still is a big industry, but it certainly is not a big industry or as big in the United States as other industries now. And we farmed a lot of that out, but it was pretty amazing how much wealth and power the South had. And you're talking about 20 million people in the North and 8 million people in the South at the beginning of the Civil War, and 2 million of those were probably enslaved. So you're talking about a very small portion of the population that had a huge control over the country. And at any rate, that's just a little something for you to chew on, bud.
Yeah, look at the homes they built. I mean, some of these homes a lot of these homes are grand estates.
Yeah.
So they had the money for sure.
And remember that the South did this as an agrarian economy. They were mostly planting, agriculture, and they were exporting to the world. And that's one of the reasons that the Civil War was started, Ken, was the Democrats in the 1820s wanted to impose import taxes, tariffs on goods coming from Europe and Asia. And the South said, you know what, if you do this, they're going to put import taxes on our goods, on our cotton when we send it over there. And the country's going to go broke because we won't be able to bring any money into the country. The South was bringing in most of the foreign cash. I mean, you have to have cash coming in. You can't just print it. Well, you can if you're Joe.
Somebody want to tell that to the government?
Yeah. And this was a big deal, and the South said, we're leaving, we're seceding. And of course, Andy Jackson said to Calhoun, who was the senator from South Carolina, or the vice president or whatever, he was going to hang the first SOB that seceded. He'd go down there and do it personally. But at any rate, that was the public face, and privately the Congress backed down on the taxation on the import tariffs, and the South said, all right, we'll stick around a while longer. But we could have had the Civil War start around 1830 if the North hadn't backed down on these heavy-handed tariffs that would have destroyed our economy, basically. They were trying to protect nascent manufacturing industries in the North, but it would have been at the expense of the country's whole economy.
Tariffs are never a good thing.
I'm not enough of an economist to debate that with you. Certainly, there's a lot of damage that's done by them, and people that are in business invariably say a free market is the best market. And I can tell you, in medicine, if we had a free market, it would be a lot different. But we are so highly regulated, and it's such a subsidized and difficult profession to navigate, not only as a physician but as a businessman too. And now it's gone to the corporate world where the hospitals and the big clinics are getting in there and they're trying to manipulate the situation and make more and more money. But the hospital stocks are dropping after the pandemic. Did you know that?
Well, I had no idea. I haven't been watching the hospital stocks closely.
Yeah, the hospitals had tons of money coming in during the pandemic because of all this hundreds of millions of dollars pumped out by the federal government. And now that the pandemic is slowed down, there's fewer hospitalizations and fewer people going to the hospital, although the surgery part of it is doing well. But the other parts, the medical and inpatient, they're not doing as well as they were. A lot of the surgery is going to same-day surgery, outpatient surgery. So people come in and they get their hernia repaired or their appendix taken out, and they go home the same day. Or their gallbladder. Did you know that?
I had my gallbladder out, and I was gone within 24 hours, yep.
And that's the way it is.
Punched a couple holes in my stomach, and that was it.
Yep. And my father had his out in the morning and went to a football game at night. That was back in the 1980s.
Well, before that, you'd have your chest cut open, you know.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you'd have a big long incision on your belly, and it was a different era. But now we have robotics and microsurgery and laparoscopic surgeries. So we can get in there and do things and get you out in a hurry. And you can have heart surgery and be out in a couple days now if you have robotic heart surgery. Did you know that?
No, I'm glad to hear it.
You're up and gone. So the hospitals are seeing a decrease in not only in admissions, but also in lengths of stay and in the acuity. And there's all the cardiac procedures are falling. All the surgical cardiac procedures are falling because a lot of this can be done through the catheter, through the veins and arteries, with a catheter, a flexible tube that you can get up into the heart and work on valves and work on conduction problems and atrial fibrillation and those kinds of things. So.
Well, I'm glad to hear that because, as you know, I have a leaky valve.
As do I. And it's pretty common as we get older to have valve problems and to have conduction problems. You know, I went into atrial fibrillation a few weeks back and put myself on medication. I was in the doctor's lounge and everybody was all over me. You know, one of the guys, he had one of those Fitbit watches or the Apple watches, you know, those things, and
sure,
take your heart rate, and then he can put it onto. There's an app with your Apple phone, and you get the rhythm strip right on your phone. And so we're looking at me, and I'm clicking away at 145, and some of the female doctors are. Bill, you have to go to the ER. This is atrial fibrillation with a rapid ventricular response. I said, I'll just take some medicine. I'll be fine. And I did. I took my amiodarone, and I took a beta blocker, metoprolol, to slow my heart down. Amiodarone is a rhythm control drug. And beta blockers control the rate by slowing down the conduction through the conducting system. So. And I waited it out. 3 days later, I was back in sinus. So I've kept myself.
I've had AFib for 10 years, and you guys have all been able to keep it under control, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, and so it's a fairly common phenomenon, especially as we get older. And but the problem is, Ken, that there are people who are at a high risk for developing blood clots with atrial fibrillation in their left atrium. Which is the chamber that receives blood back from the lungs, oxygenated blood, and then that goes into the left ventricle, which is the big pumper, and pumps it out the aorta. But it's like, you know how, have you ever seen a creek where there's a little side swirl, a little eddy?
Sure.
It kind of stagnates there. Well, you've got some areas in your left atrium where that can happen, that can form, and the atrial appendage, which is a little sticky downy thing off of the atrium, the blood will stagnate in there, and in order for blood to stay unclotted, you have to keep it mixed because we're always clotting and unclotting. So it's an ongoing warfare between those proteins that want to clot and those proteins that want to break them down. But if you let it sit, as you know, as you've seen when your blood is drawn, it'll clot, And then you flick one of those off, and it goes out your left ventricle, up your aorta, and into your brain, and you got a stroke. And the people that are higher at risk for that are women, older people, big left atriums, diabetics, hypertensives, people with prior histories. And so there are a number of risk factors that we look at. And if you're high enough on the scale, then we start you on a blood thinner, like Xarelto or Eliquis. We used to use Coumadin a lot, warfarin. Less and less now, because with the Xarelto and the Eliquis, you don't have to go in and get your finger stuck once a month and get your clotting time checked. And so it's a little safer, a little bit more convenient, a little better medication.
Well, if you think you have any of these problems, this is the guy you want to go see. Give the office number.
727-384-6411, 727-384-6411. And I'm Dr. Bill. We got cardiology and general medicine, and we do a little bit of everything. We see Canadians, we see visitors, we see Americans. Occasional cat or dog will wander in and take care of it. Honest to God, I've diagnosed some cats and dogs.
Have you really?
Yeah. And we've done x-rays on them, and the wife, she used to make me take the little fatty tumors out of Ty, our male lab. She didn't like them. She thought they were cancer. I said, no, they're just fat tumors. She said, no, you have to take them out. So we'd bring Ty in and numb him up. Do a little minor surgery on the poor guy.
And was it necessary? Doing unnecessary surgery on doggies.
And I didn't even get paid. Oh my God, that woman. So now we're trying to get India on board with sanctions against Russia, but the Indians have a long-standing relationship with the Russians. And there's a memory in the older generation that goes back to when we were siding with the Pakistanis, and the Indians and Pakistanis have been at it for a while. Basically, they split over religion. Pakistan is a Muslim nation, and India, although it has a larger Muslim population, is predominantly Hindu. So that has, and the Soviet Union stuck by them, and Nehru, who was the first prime minister of India when it was liberated and got its freedom in the late 1940s, he was a socialist, and he admired the Russian socialism. So even though India was a democracy and he was elected, quote, quote, democratically, that relationship developed and blossomed. And so now we're trying to convince the Indians that they're better off with us. And of course, there's still some animosity towards the British, because, Britain had the country under its thumb for, 100 years, from 1850 on to about 1950, and they had a large influence in India with the East Indian Trading Company, and I guess Queen Victoria decided that they needed to, in Parliament, that they needed to formalize it more, so basically they just took over running India, big chunks of it for 100 years. And that created some animosity.
And plus, right now they're getting oil from the Russians for about $40 a barrel, so...
Yeah, I don't know how much they're getting, though. I mean, there's no pipelines that are going across the Himalayas, so it's all coming in by ship. And a lot of the pumping stations up in northern Russia, up on the Arctic Circle, just like we have Prudhoe Bay in Alaska, were run by Shell and British Petroleum. Other companies are saying, we're not pumping anymore for you. We're not going to run this. So they've probably got military people up there that are trying to figure out how to do it. But, those are technical jobs. It takes a little time and training. So I don't know how much the Indians are getting. But India sells a lot of coal to China. So it's all interlocked. And, you don't actually know for sure where your oil's coming from, because it could be an independent tanker that picks it up in Venezuela and then goes around the Cape or up to Canada and unloads it up there, and who knows? Of course the brokers know and the buyers know, but other than that, how do you know where it's coming from? How do you know that the gas you're getting at your local Quick Stop here, Wawa or whatever, is domestic oil. You don't.
You don't have a clue, no.
You don't have a clue, and this is a commodity, and it's traded worldwide. So if Shell needs an extra tanker and Aramco doesn't, then Aramco says, well, send that over to Shell. We'll sell it to them. And they bid on this stuff, and they also have oil futures, so you can buy an oil contract from, say, Aramco or Shell or British Petroleum or whoever, and that's executed months down the road.
2 minutes, though. 2 minutes.
You've already got that under your auspices, or you've already got that in your pocket. So it's getting close to the end of the show, and as I said earlier, China's trying to figure out a way to take out Elon Musk Starlink satellites, but good luck with that. By the time they get around to it, there'll be 30,000 of them up there.
I think Elon's going to end up controlling the whole world at some point.
Hey, it wouldn't hurt my feelings. He's a
No,
libertarian.
me neither, no.
He's given up on the Democratic Party, which is good.
Yeah. No, he's coming around nicely.
Yeah, he's figuring it out. Well, he was a young boy. Now he's a grown man. All of a sudden,
He gave up the pot, so he's not smoking the pot anymore.
did he give it up?
I think so. I haven't heard him doing any on the at least not on television anymore.
And still able to think the way he does. Still able to do all the things that he's done. And that's not to say that you should go out and smoke pot, because he's a unique human being, and I don't think that I still think that marijuana is a gateway drug, and I can tell you this from firsthand experience and having been on the street for a year or two, Ken. You didn't know that I lived on the street for a year. But I did. Close to the end of the show here, folks, and we'd like you to remember Dr. Bill, your radio MD, also has a practice, Bay Area Medical Can Care Clinic, 727-384-6411. And we're out of here, Ken. Have a good one, buddy.
Thank you for listening to Dr. Bill, your radio MD. Join Dr. Bill every Sunday morning at 9 for more insight, information, provocation, and fun. Dr. Bill Handelman practices in St. Petersburg, Florida at Bay Area Medical Can Care Clinic, 6399 38th Avenue North. For your convenience, telemedicine appointments are available. Call his office today at 727-384-6411. That's 727-384-6411. Or visit his website at cancareclinic.com.